Story 1. The phone booth stood alone in the forest, its glass smeared with grime, the receiver dangling like a noose in the moonlight. My flashlight trembled in my hand, catching the glint of something inside. Not dirt, but words, scratched into the walls, names I recognized, names of people long gone. The air was thick, heavy with a stench like damp earth and copper, and the phone rang, sharp and shrill, though the cord was cut, swinging loose. I answered, my breath catching, and heard my sister's voice, whispering my name, begging for help. She's been missing for 7 years. The booth's door slammed shut, trapping me inside, and the glass fogged with handprints, not mine, pressing closer, forming a face. This wasn't a prank. It was a call from somewhere else, and you'll want every word, because it's real, and that booth is still out there, ringing in the dark. It was early November, and the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York were cloaked in fog, the kind that clings to your skin and muffles the world. I come to Lake Placid for a solo hiking trip, needing to clear my head after a messy breakup. My sister, Hannah, used to love these woods. She dragged me camping here as kids, her laugh echoing through the trees. But 7 years ago, she vanished on a hike, leaving nothing but her backpack and a single shoe near a trailhead. The police called it a bear attack, but they never found her body. I hadn't been back since, but something pulled me here, a need to feel close to her again. I'd been hiking for 2 days, following familiar trails, my tent pitched at a small campground near Saranac Lake. The forest was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no rustling leaves, just the crunch of my boots on pine needles. By the third evening, I was deep in the backcountry, farther than I'd planned, when I stumbled across it. A phone booth, rusted and weathered, standing in a clearing like it had grown from the ground. It was old, the kind you'd see in a 1980s gas station, with a faded bell system logo and cracked glass panes. The door hung slightly ajar, creaking in the wind. I froze, my flashlight beam catching the booth's interior. Grimy, littered with leaves, and covered in scratches, like someone had clawed at the walls. I checked my map, confused. No trails led here, no roads, no reason for a phone booth in the middle of nowhere. My phone had no signal, hadn't for hours, and the battery was at 12%. I stepped closer, my heart thudding. The booth smelled wrong. Damp, metallic, like blood mixed with wet dirt. I shone my light inside, and that's when I saw the scratches weren't random. They were names, dozens of them, carved into the metal and glass. My stomach dropped when I saw hers. Hannah Marie Ellis, 2016. My sister's name etched in jagged letters next to others I vaguely recognized. Missing hikers, names from old news stories. I backed away, my breath shallow, but then the phone rang. A sharp, piercing trill that cut through the silence. I froze, my flashlight shaking. The cord was severed, dangling uselessly, yet the ringing continued, insistent. I don't know why I answered. Maybe instinct, maybe desperation, but I lifted the receiver, my hand trembling. Static crackled, then her voice, clear and small. Ben, help me. I'm still here. It was Hannah, my sister, her voice unchanged, like she was standing next to me. My knees buckled. Hannah? Where are you? I choked out, tears stinging my eyes. The static grew louder, and her voice broke, sobbing. In the booth, Ben. Don't leave me. The line went dead, and the booth's door slammed shut behind me, locking me inside. I dropped the phone, the receiver swinging, and pounded on the door. It wouldn't budge. The air in the booth was suffocating, the metallic stench so thick I could taste it. The glass fogged, not with my breath but with handprints, small and smeared, appearing one by one, pressing from the outside. I screamed, banging on the door, my fists aching, but the forest was silent, swallowing my voice. The phone rang again, and I grabbed it, desperate. Hannah, tell me where you are, I shouted. Her voice came through, softer now, almost a whisper. You're with me, Ben. You're here. The booth's walls seemed to close in, the scratches glowing faintly in the dark, the names pulsing like heartbeats. My flashlight flickered, then died, leaving only the moonlight filtering through the grimy glass. The handprints multiplied, forming shapes. Fingers, palms, then a face, eyeless, mouthless, pressed against the pane. I stumbled back, tripping over the phone cord, and saw my own name, freshly carved, appearing on the wall. Benjamin Ellis, 2025. I clawed at the door, my nails splitting, but it was like hitting steel. The phone kept ringing, Hannah's voice looping. "Stay, Ben. Stay with me." The air grew colder, my breath visible, and the booth shook, a low rumble like the ground was shifting beneath it. Shadows moved outside, not animals, not people. Shapes, tall and thin, circling the booth, their edges blurring like smoke. I pressed myself against the back wall, my heart pounding, and saw the glass crack, tiny fissures spreading like veins. The phone stopped ringing, and the silence was worse. The shadows stopped moving, standing still, watching. I felt it. A presence, not just outside but inside, behind me, breathing down my neck. I didn't turn around, couldn't, but the air was heavy, pressing on my chest, and the stench was unbearable, like death itself had crawled into the booth. The handprints on the glass formed words now. "You belong here." I screamed, my voice raw, and swung my backpack at the door, hoping to break the glass. It held, but the cracks grew, and the shadows outside leaned closer, their forms sharpening into faces. Hannah's, my mother's, others I didn't know, all staring, all silent. The booth shook violently, the ground trembling, and the door flew open, slamming against the frame. I stumbled out, falling to my knees in the dirt, the forest air cold and sharp. The booth stood behind me, its glass glowing faintly. The handprints gone, but the names still there, carved deep. I ran, my flashlight dead, my phone useless, the trees closing in like a cage. The shadows didn't follow, but I felt them, their gaze heavy, like hands on my shoulders. The phone's ring echoed in my head, Hannah's voice looping. "Stay with me." I don't know how long I ran, hours, maybe, my legs burning, my lungs aching. I found a trail, then a road, and flagged down a ranger's truck at dawn. The ranger, a grizzled man with tired eyes, listened to my story, his face pale. He drove me to the station where I told the police everything. They searched the area, found no phone booth, no clearing, just trees and rocks. My map showed no trail where I'd been, and my phone, somehow charged again, had a voicemail from an unknown number. Hannah's voice, one word, "Stay." They said I'd imagined it, that grief and exhaustion played tricks. But I saw the scratches, the names, her name. I haven't gone back to the Adirondacks, haven't hiked, haven't slept through a night since. Last week, I found a piece of glass in my jacket pocket, sharp and smeared with grime, etched with my initials, B. Sometimes, in the dark, I hear it. The phone ringing, Hannah's voice, and the faint creak of a booth door, opening somewhere close. Story 2. The phone booth glowed faintly in the forest's gloom. Its glass panes cracked, smeared with something dark that wasn't mud, wasn't paint. My flashlight caught glints of metal inside. Coins, scattered like offerings, but they weren't quarters. They were old, etched with faces I didn't recognize. The air was thick, choking, reeking of wet leaves and something sharp, like burned bone. The phone rang, its bell shrieking through the silence, though the cord was frayed, sparking. I answered, my hands shaking, and heard my father's voice, low and broken, saying, "Claire, you shouldn't have come back. He died 5 years ago, hit by a car." The booth's door slammed shut, locking me in, and the glass fogged with breath. Not mine. Forming words, "You're home." Shadows moved outside, too many, too wrong, circling closer. This wasn't a hike gone bad. It was a call from something that knew me, and you'll want every word, because it's real, and that booth is still out there, waiting to answer. It was late September, and the Black Hills of South Dakota were a patchwork of pine and mist, the kind of place that feels alive, watching. I'd come to Custer State Park for a weekend alone, trying to shake the fog of a bad year. My job as a nurse in Rapid City was draining, and my dad's death still hung over me like a shadow. He'd loved these woods, used to take me hiking here when I was a kid, teaching me to spot deer tracks and listen for owls. 5 years ago, he was killed crossing a street, a hit and run they never solved. I thought coming back would feel like closure, a way to feel him again. I was wrong. I'd been hiking for a day, sticking to marked trails, my backpack heavy with gear. My phone had no signal, which was fine. I wanted to disconnect. By the second evening, I was deep in the forest, farther than I'd meant to go, following a trail that wasn't on my map. The air was cool, heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth, and the light was fading fast. I was looking for a spot to pitch my tent when I saw it. A phone booth, rusted and leaning slightly, standing in a clearing like it had been dropped there. Its glass was cracked, one pane missing, and the door hung open, creaking. It was old, with a faded AT&T logo, the kind I hadn't seen since I was a kid. I stopped, my flashlight beam cutting through the dusk. No roads led here, no trails, no reason for a phone booth in the middle of the Black Hills. My skin prickled, but I stepped closer, curious despite myself. The booth smelled wrong. Wet, metallic, like blood mixed with ash. Inside, the floor was littered with coins. Not modern ones, but heavy, tarnished things, stamped with strange faces and symbols. The walls were scratched, not randomly but with words, names, dates, phrases like "I'm sorry" and "don't leave." My heart thudded when I saw my father's name. James R. Holt, 2020, carved in sharp, uneven letters. I backed away, my breath shallow, but the phone rang. A harsh, jangling sound that echoed in the clearing. The cord was frayed, sparking faintly, yet the ringing didn't stop. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the receiver. I don't know why I picked it up. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was Dad. "Hello," I whispered, my voice trembling. Static crackled. Then his voice, clear and heavy. "Claire, you shouldn't have come back." I dropped the receiver, stumbling back, but the door slammed shut, trapping me inside. The lock clicked, unyielding, and I pounded on the glass, my fists aching. "Dad!" I choked out, tears burning my eyes. The phone kept ringing, his voice looping. "You shouldn't have come back." I grabbed the receiver again, shouting, "What do you want?" The static shifted, and he said, "You left me, Claire. You left me to die." My dad had died alone on a dark street while I was working a night shift. The guilt had eaten me alive ever since. Now, hearing his voice, it was like a knife twisting in my chest. The booth's air grew thicker, the stench of burned bones so strong I gagged. The glass fogged, not with my breath but with handprints, small and smudged, appearing one by one, pressing from the outside. I screamed, banging on the door, but the forest was silent, swallowing my voice. The booth felt like a coffin, the walls closing in, the air so heavy I could barely breathe. The handprints multiplied, smearing into shapes. Fingers, palms, then eyes, watching me through the glass. The phone kept ringing, my father's voice growing harsher, accusing, "You weren't there, Claire. You let me go." I clawed at the door, my nails splitting, but it was like hitting iron. The scratches on the walls glowed faintly, the names pulsing, my father's name burning brightest. My own name appeared, freshly carved. Claire Holt, 2025, the letters jagged, like they were cut with a knife. The booth shook, a low rumble that vibrated through my bones. The coins on the floor shifted, arranging themselves into patterns. Circles, spirals, things that made my head hurt to look at. Shadows moved outside, not animals, not people. Shapes, tall and thin, with limbs too long, heads too small, circling the booth like vultures. I pressed myself against the back wall, my flashlight flickering, its beam catching glimpses of their forms. Faceless, eyeless, their bodies flickering like static. The phone's ringing stopped, replaced by a hum, low and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The air grew colder, my breath visible, and the stench was unbearable, like something dead was trapped with me. The handprints on the glass formed words. "You're home now." I screamed, my voice raw, swinging my backpack at the glass, hoping to shatter it. The cracks widened, but the glass held, and the shadows outside pressed closer, their forms sharpening into faces. My father's, twisted and wrong, his eyes black pits, his mouth stretched too wide. The booth shook again, harder, the floor tilting like the ground was giving way. The phone rang once more, and I answered, unable to stop myself. "Claire," my father's voice said, softer now, almost sad. "Stay with me." The shadows outside stopped moving, standing still, their faceless heads tilted, listening. I felt it. A pull, like the booth was sinking, dragging me with it, into something deeper, darker. I dropped to my knees, sobbing, my hands fumbling for anything. A weapon, a tool. My flashlight caught a glint under the phone. A rusted coin, stamped with my face, my name, the year 2025. The booth's walls creaked, the scratches glowing brighter, and the shadows began to seep through the cracks, not as shapes but as smoke, wrapping around my arms, my throat, cold and slick like oil. I screamed, pounding the floor, and felt the booth shift again, the ground softening beneath me, like it was swallowing the booth whole. The door flew open, the hinges screaming, and I stumbled out, falling into the dirt, the forest air cold and sharp with pine. The booth stood behind me, its glass dark, the handprints gone, but the name still there, glowing faintly. I ran, my flashlight dead, my phone useless, the trees closing in like a maze. The shadows didn't follow, but their presence lingered, a weight on my back, a whisper in my ears. "You're home." My father's voice echoed in my head, not from the phone but from the forest itself, calling me back. I ran for hours, my legs burning, my lungs aching, tripping over roots and rocks. Dawn broke, and I found a trail, then a road, where a hiker's van stopped for me. The driver, a young guy with a beard, listened to my story, his eyes wide. He drove me to a ranger station where I told the police everything. They searched the area, found no phone booth, no clearing, just endless pines. My phone, somehow charged, had a photo I didn't take. The booth, its glass smeared with handprints, my father's face pressed against it, eyeless, smiling. They said I was dehydrated, hallucinating, but I know what I saw. I haven't gone back to the Black Hills, haven't hiked, haven't slept without pills. Last month, I found a coin in my pocket, heavy and tarnished, with my face on it, my name etched below. At night, I hear it, the phone ringing, my father's voice, and the faint creak of a booth door, opening somewhere in the dark, waiting for me to answer. Story 3. The phone booth loomed in the forest, its rusted frame half swallowed by vines. The glass so smeared with grime it looked like it wept. My flashlight beam trembled, catching scratches on the walls. Not random, but words, please, my best friend's name carved deep, though he'd been dead for a decade. The air was thick, choking with a stench like rotting wood and something sharper, like blood left to dry. The phone rang, its bell screaming through the trees. Though the receiver was cracked, the cord chewed to wires. I answered, my heart pounding, and heard his voice. Matt, my best friend, whispering, "Nate, you found me." The door slammed shut, locking me inside, and the glass fogged with breath, not mine, forming a face. His face, but wrong, eyeless, smiling. Shadows danced outside, too many, too tall, pressing closer. This wasn't a hike. It was a grave, and you'll want every word, because it's real, and that booth is still out there, ringing for someone new. It was mid-October, and the Olympic National Forest in Washington was a labyrinth of moss and shadow, the kind of place where the trees seemed to whisper secrets. I'd come to the peninsula for a solo backpacking trip, needing to escape the grind of my tech job in Seattle. My best friend, Matt, used to drag me here when we were in college, his grin lighting up the trails as we hiked, laughed, and planned futures that never came. 10 years ago, he went missing in these woods during a solo trip, leaving only a torn jacket near a river. The rangers called it a fall, said he drowned, but they never found his body. I hadn't been back since, but something pulled me. A need to say goodbye, to walk his last path. I'd been hiking for 3 days, sticking to the Ho River Trail, my tent pitched at a quiet site near a bend in the river. The forest was alive, dripping with mist, the air heavy with pine and earth. My phone had no signal, battery down to 15%, but I didn't care, I wanted the solitude. By the 4th evening, I'd wandered off trail, chasing a faint path that wasn't on my map, drawn by a gut feeling I couldn't explain. The light was fading, the trees closing in, when I saw it. A phone booth, old and rusted, standing in a clearing like a relic from another time. Its glass was cracked, streaked with dark smudges, and the door hung open, swaying slightly. It was the kind of booth you'd find in a forgotten gas station. Not here, miles from any road. I stopped, my flashlight beam cutting through the dusk. The clearing was wrong. Too still. No birds, no wind, just a heavy silence that pressed on my chest. I stepped closer, the booth stench hitting me. Rotting wood, damp metal, and something metallic, like old blood. Inside, the walls were scratched, not randomly but with intent, names, dates, phrases like I didn't mean to and come back. My breath caught when I saw his name. Matthew Ryan Cole, 2015. Carved in sharp, angry letters, the date of his disappearance. My hands shook, my flashlight flickering. Matt was gone, lost to these woods, and seeing his name here felt like a violation. I backed away, ready to run, but the phone rang, a shrill, jarring sound that echoed through the trees. The cord was frayed, wires exposed, yet the ringing didn't stop, insistent, demanding. I hesitated, my heart thudding, then lifted the receiver, my fingers cold. Static hissed, then his voice, clear and raw. "Nate, you found me." It was Matt, his voice unchanged, like we were back in college, planning our next adventure. Tears stung my eyes. "Matt, where are you?" I choked out. The static grew louder, his voice breaking. "I'm here, Nate, in the booth. Don't leave me." The door slammed shut, locking me inside with a heavy click. I dropped the phone, the receiver swinging, and pounded on the glass, my fists aching. The forest was silent, swallowing my screams. The booth was a trap, the air inside thick, suffocating, the stench of blood and rot so strong I gagged. The glass fogged, not with my breath but with handprints, small and smudged, appearing one by one, pressing from the outside. I screamed, banging on the door, but it was like hitting steel, unyielding. The phone rang again, Matt's voice pleading, "Nate, stay with me. I'm so cold." I grabbed the receiver, shouting, "Where are you? What's happening?" His voice shifted, lower, almost a growl. "You left me, Nate. You let me fall." Guilt hit me like a fist. I'd been supposed to go with Matt that weekend, but work kept me in Seattle. He'd gone alone, and I'd carried that weight ever since. Now, hearing his voice, it was like the forest was digging it up, twisting the knife. The booth's walls seemed to pulse, the scratches glowing faintly, Matt's name burning brightest. My own name appeared, freshly carved. Nathan James Reed, 2025, the letters jagged, like they'd been clawed by something angry. The booth shook, a low rumble that vibrated through my bones. The floor was slick, not with water but with something darker, pooling under my boots. Shadows moved outside, not animals, not people. Shapes, tall and thin, with limbs too long, heads too small, circling the booth like sharks. My flashlight flickered, its beam catching their forms. Faceless, eyeless, flickering like a bad signal. The phone kept ringing, Matt's voice looping, "Stay, Nate, stay with me." The air grew colder, my breath visible, the stench unbearable, like something dead was trapped with me. The handprints on the glass formed words. "You belong here." I swung my backpack at the door, desperate to break free, but the glass held, cracks spreading like spiderwebs. The shadows outside pressed closer, their forms sharpening into faces. Matt's, but wrong, his eyes black pits, his mouth stretched too wide, smiling. The booth shook again, harder, the floor tilting like the ground was giving way. The phone's ringing stopped, replaced by a hum, low and rhythmic, like a pulse. The shadows seeped through the cracks, not as shapes but as smoke, cold and slick, wrapping around my arms, my throat. I dropped to my knees, choking, my flashlight dead, the booth's walls closing in. The scratches glowed brighter, the names pulsing, and I felt it. A pull, like the booth was sinking, dragging me into something deeper, darker. I clawed at the floor, my nails splitting, and found something under the phone. A rusted key, etched with my initials. NJR. The shadows tightened, their touch burning cold, and Matt's voice whispered, not from the phone but from behind me. "You found me, Nate. Now stay." I screamed, my voice raw, and swung the key at the glass. A desperate, futile gesture. The booth shook one last time, the door creaking, the shadows hissing, and I felt the ground give way beneath me. The door flew open, slamming against the frame, and I stumbled out, falling into the moss, the forest air cold and sharp with pine. The booth stood behind me, its glass dark, the handprints gone, but the names still there, glowing faintly in the moonlight. I ran, my flashlight useless, my phone dead, the trees closing in like a cage. The shadows didn't follow, but I felt them, their gaze heavy, like hands on my shoulders. Matt's voice echoed in my head, not from the phone but from the forest itself. "Stay with me." I ran for hours, my legs burning, my lungs aching, tripping over roots and rocks. Dawn broke, gray and cold, and I found a trail, then a road, where a hiker's jeep stopped for me. The driver, a woman with tired eyes, listened to my story, her hands gripping the wheel. She drove me to a ranger station, where I told the police everything, my voice shaking. They searched the area, found no phone booth, no clearing, just endless trees and riverbank. My phone, somehow charged, had a text from an unknown number. "You left me," sent at 2:13 a.m. They said I was exhausted, hallucinating, but I know what I saw. I haven't gone back to the Olympic forest, haven't hiked, haven't slept without nightmares. Last week, I found a key in my jacket pocket, rusted and heavy, with my initials etched deep. At night, I hear it. The phone ringing, Matt's voice, and the faint creak of a booth door, opening somewhere in the dark, calling me back to the forest. Story 4. The phone booth stood like a sentinel in the forest's heart, its glass cracked and smeared with something dark, glistening like oil under my flashlight's beam. The air was heavy, thick with a stench like rotting leaves and iron, and the booth's walls were etched with names, dates, pleas for mercy, each scratch glowing faintly, as if alive. The phone rang, a piercing wail, though the cord was severed, wires sparking in the dark. I answered, my hands trembling, and heard my daughter's voice, my daughter, who died in a fire 3 years ago, whispering, "Mommy, I'm cold." The door slammed shut, locking me inside, and the glass fogged with tiny handprints, not mine, forming her face pale and eyeless, staring back. Shadows slithered outside, too many, too wrong, their forms twisting into shapes that knew my name. This wasn't a chance discovery. It was a summons, and you'll want every word, because it's real, and that booth is out there, ringing in the dark, waiting for its next call. It was early December, and the Great Smoky Mountains straddling Tennessee and North Carolina were cloaked in mist, the trees bare and skeletal, their branches clawing at the sky. I'd come to the mountains for a solo hiking trip, desperate to escape the weight of grief that had clung to me since my daughter, Ellie, died 3 years ago. She was 6, caught in a house fire while I was at work, a tragedy that burned away my marriage, my faith, everything. Her laughter used to fill our camping trips here, her tiny hands clutching mine as we explored the trails. I hadn't been back since her death, but something pulled me. A need to feel her again, to walk where we'd been happy. I'd been hiking for 2 days, following the Appalachian Trail, my tent pitched at a quiet site near Clingman's Dome. The forest was silent, the air heavy with damp and cold, the kind that seeps into your bones. My phone had no signal, battery at 10%, but I didn't care. I wanted the isolation, the chance to grieve without pitying eyes. By the third evening, I'd wandered off trail, chasing a faint path through the fog, drawn by a feeling I couldn't name. The light was fading, the trees closing in, when I saw it. A phone booth, rusted and weathered, standing in a clearing like a forgotten shrine. Its glass was cracked, smeared with dark streaks, and the door hung open, creaking in the wind. It was old, with a faded bell logo, the kind you'd see in a small-town diner, not here, miles from any road. I stopped, my flashlight beam trembling. The clearing was wrong. Too still. No birds, no rustling leaves, just a silence that pressed on my chest like a stone. I stepped closer, the booth stench hitting me. Rotting leaves, wet metal, and something sharp, like blood left to dry. Inside, the walls were scratched, not randomly but with purpose. Names, dates, phrases like "I'm sorry" and "don't go." My heart stopped when I saw her name. Ellie Rose Carter, 2022. Carved in small, jagged letters, the year she died. My knees buckled, and I grabbed the door frame, my breath shallow. Ellie was gone, burned away in that fire. Yet her name was here, etched in this impossible place. I backed away, my flashlight flickering, but the phone rang. A shrill, jarring sound that cut through the silence. The cord was severed, wires sparking faintly. Yet the ringing didn't stop, insistent, demanding. I hesitated, my heart pounding, then lifted the receiver, my fingers numb. Static hissed, then her voice, small and clear, "Mommy, I'm cold." It was Ellie, my daughter, her voice unchanged, like she was sitting beside me, begging for a blanket. Tears streamed down my face. "Ellie? Baby, where are you?" I choked out. The static grew louder, her voice breaking. "I'm here, Mommy, in the booth. Don't leave me." The door slammed shut, locking me inside with a heavy click. I dropped the phone, the receiver swinging, and pounded on the glass, my fists aching. The forest was silent, swallowing my screams. "Ellie!" I shouted, my voice raw. The phone kept ringing, her voice looping, "Mommy, I'm cold. Stay with me." I grabbed the receiver again, sobbing, "Baby, I'm here. I'm here." The static shifted, and her voice turned wrong, lower, almost a growl. "You let me burn, Mommy. You weren't there." The guilt hit like a wave, drowning me. I was working late that night, stuck at the hospital, while Ellie was with a babysitter. The fire was electrical, they said, too fast, too fierce. I carried that blame every day since. Now, hearing her voice, it was like the forest was tearing open the wound, making it bleed fresh. The booth was a prison, the air inside thick, suffocating, the stench of blood and rot so strong I gagged. The glass fogged, not with my breath but with handprints. Tiny, like Ellie's, appearing one by one, pressing from the outside. I screamed, banging on the door, my knuckles bruising, but it was like hitting iron. The scratches on the walls glowed faintly, Ellie's name pulsing brightest, joined by others I recognized. Missing hikers, names from news reports, all carved in jagged, desperate strokes. My own name appeared, freshly etched. Laura and Carter, 2025. The letters forming as I watched, like an invisible hand was carving them. The booth shook, a low rumble that vibrated through my bones. The floor was slick, not with water but with something darker, pooling under my boots, warm and sticky. My flashlight flickered, its beam catching the glass, where the handprints multiplied, smearing into shapes. Fingers, palms, then a face, Ellie's face, but wrong, her eyes black pits, her mouth stretched too wide, smiling. I stumbled back, tripping over the phone cord, and saw the walls shift, the scratches moving, forming words. "You belong here." The phone kept ringing, Ellie's voice looping, "Stay with me, Mommy. I'm so cold." I grabbed the receiver, shouting, "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." Her voice shifted again, colder. "You left me to burn." The air grew freezing, my breath visible, the stench unbearable, like something dead was trapped with me. Shadows moved outside, not animals, not people, shapes tall and thin, with limbs too long, heads too small, circling the booth like wolves. My flashlight died, leaving only the moonlight filtering through the grimy glass, catching their forms, faceless, eyeless, flickering like static on an old TV. The booth shook again, harder, the floor tilting like the ground was giving way. The handprints on the glass formed sentences. You let her die. Stay now. I swung my backpack at the door, desperate to break free, but the glass held, cracks spreading like veins. The shadows outside pressed closer, their forms sharpening into faces. Ellie's, but twisted, her skin gray, her eyes gone, her smile a slash of darkness. The phone's ringing stopped, replaced by a hum, low and rhythmic, like a heartbeat pulsing through the booth. I dropped to my knees, sobbing, my hands fumbling for anything. A weapon, a tool. Under the phone, I found a coin, heavy and tarnished, etched with Ellie's face, her name, the year 2022. The shadows seeped through the cracks, not as shapes but as smoke, cold and slick, wrapping around my arms, my throat, burning like ice. I screamed, my voice raw, and clawed at the floor, my nails splitting. The booth's walls pulsed, the scratches glowing brighter, and I felt it. A pull, like the booth was sinking, dragging me into something deeper, darker, where Ellie waited, cold and alone. The hum grew louder, the shadows tightening, their touch like needles in my skin. The glass cracked further, the handprints smearing into new words. Come home. I grabbed the coin, clutching it, and swung it at the glass, a desperate, futile gesture. The booth shook one last time, the floor softening, like it was melting into the earth, and Ellie's voice whispered, not from the phone but from behind me, Mommy, stay with me. We'll be together now. The door flew open, slamming against the frame, and I stumbled out, falling into the dirt, the forest air cold and sharp with pine. The booth stood behind me, its glass dark, the handprints gone, but the name still there, glowing faintly in the moonlight. I ran, my flashlight dead, my phone useless, the trees closing in like a cage. The shadows didn't follow, but I felt them, their gaze heavy, like hands on my shoulders, pulling me back. Ellie's voice echoed in my head, not from the phone but from the forest itself. Stay with me. I ran for hours, my legs burning, my lungs aching, tripping over roots and rocks, the mist swallowing the world. Dawn broke, gray and cold, and I found a trail, then a road, where a park ranger's truck stopped for me. The ranger, an older man with a weathered face, listened to my story, his eyes narrowing. He drove me to a station, where I told the police everything, my voice shaking, tears streaming. They searched the area, found no phone booth, no clearing, just endless trees and riverbank. My phone, somehow charged, had a voicemail from an unknown number, sent at 2:13 a.m. Ellie's voice, one word, Mommy, followed by static that sounded like crackling flames. They said I was dehydrated, traumatized, that grief plays tricks. But I saw her name, felt the shadows, smelled the blood. I haven't gone back to the Smokies, haven't hiked, haven't slept without seeing her face. Eyeless, smiling. Last month, I found a coin in my purse, heavy and tarnished, with Ellie's face etched on it. Her name below, the year 2022. At night, I hear it, the phone ringing, Ellie's voice, and the faint creak of a booth door, opening somewhere in the dark, calling me back to the forest where my daughter waits, cold and alone.